Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to the part 3 tutorial for the coding assignments associated with Severance Chapter 11. That's a chapter on regular expressions. And in uh, this exercise, we're going to be building a module, okay, that's going to contain a function that can be used to validate a password. Okay, so two things that we're trying to do. First of all, we want this to be a module that can be shared with uh, other developers. Okay, so this has to be a um, this has to be code that we could import into one of our programs. In fact, we're going to import it and use it in part 4. And so we need to be able to structure it as a proper module, and we need to be able to unit test it in the way that we're unit testing the modules in our class, and then later on we need to be able to import it and use it and have it behave in the expected way. So this is called my passport module.py, and again I use this kind of format for the names of all of my modules, and it's different from certainly the modules that come as part of the Python distribution, which tend to have one short name. For instance, the package that we're going to import to work on this is regular expressions. It's called RE. Okay. So I just want these to have clearly different names than the packages that come from the distribution, and you and your coworkers will decide on what's a good name for the modules that you decided that you want to share amongst yourselves. So what's the first thing that we need to do? Well, we need to import the RE package so we can use regular expressions. I'm going to bring that over from our already already baked version. Okay, and then we need a function. Okay, and the function that we're going to be creating here is called validate password. So validate password. Okay, and it takes one argument, and that's a candidate. It's going to get a string that's a candidate that we're going to want to know, is it uh, is it valid or not? Okay, so we're going to pass it in a candidate. Okay, um, and what are we going to return? Well, we're going to return some kind of answer that's going to be a Boolean, true or false. Okay. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's just say for now, we know the input is the candidate, and we know we're going to, uh, let's say that we have an answer, right? And the default value is going to be false. Sorry, capital false, right? And we're going to return answer. Okay. Now, that's always going to fail, but that's a good place to start. And what else are we going to need? Well, what we've been doing in our class is we've been putting the unit test code for our modules into the main. Okay. All right. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to define a main. Doesn't take any parameters. Let's say that it's empty for now. Just give it a pass. And then we need to invoke the main only if uh, this is being run as a module all by itself, only if we are testing the module, not if we're importing it. And so how do we do that? Well, we make sure that we do the proper test before we make a call to main. So we said, say if the name that we're running under is main, if we're running this thing itself and not importing it, then yeah, we want to run the main, we want to run the function main because that's going to have our unit test code. And then of course we want to end this with one empty line. Okay, that's how we do that. Okay, good. Well, this looks good except for we don't have any real code in it. All right. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to get the password. I guess the thought is this function validate password is not going to do its own input output. So it might come from the console. It might be a password that came in on a web form. It could have a lot of different origins. Okay. By the time we pass it to validate a password, it's just going to be a string. Okay. So that's what candidate is going to be. It's going to be a string. Okay. And, oh, we're going to make answer be even fancier. Okay, let's think about this. All right. We're going to, let's think about this. So instead of having answer be a Boolean, instead of expecting it to hold either true or false, I'm going to give you an interesting idea here. And this is a pretty typical construct you see people do. If in fact you can have more than one error, okay, and the rules for passwords are typically here are the rules that we're going to use. It has to be at least 6 characters long, okay. It has to contain at least one uppercase alphabetic, so something in the set uppercase A to Z. It has to contain at least one lowercase alphabetic, okay? And it has to contain at least one special character from the group exclamation, @ pound sign, $sign, percent, circumflex, ampersand, and asterisk. Okay, so it has to have one of those. It has to have a lowercase alphabetic. It has to have an uppercase alphabetic, and it has to be at least 6 characters long. Now, it's very frustrating to users to be told about problems that they have one complaint at a time. Okay, and there are a lot of password checking mechanisms where you type in a password and it says you need at least one lowercase. You go, oh, I'll put in a lowercase, and then it says, oh, and now it says you need one. You need an uppercase as well. So then you go, oh, I'll put an uppercase. And then it says, well, it needs to be at least 6 characters long. And what you really want to do is you really want to, when you validate the password, you want to see if it passed all the rules, or if it didn't pass all the rules, then which ones has it broken. And the trick for this is that you have a list that holds error messages. Okay, that's what answer is, the way I have it right now. Okay. And if we return an empty list, that means that the password is valid. Okay. And if we return a list that has at least one error message in it, well, that means it's invalid, and we can print the the error messages with a loop. Okay, so this is a pretty typical approach to validating things that can have more than one problem. And the user friendliness of this is we're going to tell them about all their problems at one time. At least in theory, they can fix them all and they can get it right on their next try. Okay? So at the very end, we're going to return answer. All right. Well, what other code do we have? Okay. So the first thing that we want to test for is we want to test that it's at least 6 characters long. Okay, let's do that. Let's build this as we go. Okay. So we say if the length of a candidate is less than 6, well then it has an error. Okay. You know what we might call this rather than answer? Let's call it error messages. Okay. So let's refactor. I like that better. It's not what I called it before, but let's refactor, rename, and let's take answer, and let's call it error messages. Okay, it's a list, so it can have a plural name. All right, so if error messages are empty, it's valid. I think that makes a lot of sense. So we're going to append password must be at least 6 characters long onto error uh, onto the list error messages. Okay, well that looks good. Okay, so uh, that's that. Now, how do we test this? Well, what we do is we start to build up the unit tests in the main. Okay, so then when we run this, it's going to run that. Okay, so let's come up with the test cases that we need to test rule 1. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to begin the main by telling whoever runs this at the console that we are going to produce unit testing output. Okay? And then we're going to have our first test case. Now, I think we've already shown this style of test case before, but just in case we haven't, I'll kind of walk you through this one. Okay. So this one says the test case that we're trying to catch is that the password is too short. Okay. So how do we do this? Well, okay, so we have a password. It has an upper, it has a lower, it has a special character, it has characters 4 and 5. It doesn't have a 6 character, so it should fail. Okay. Uh, what should the expected result be that we get back? Well, it should be a list. So here's our list. Okay. How many errors should it have in it? Well, just one. Okay. So we have a list that has a single character string in it. And what is the character string? Well, it's this one right here. So how did I get this? Well, I simply went up to the code and I copied it and pasted it down here. Okay. Now, that's the expected result of the call. What's the actual? Well, um, we have validate password with input password. So we've already said what our input password's going to be. We call validate password, and then we say if the actual result that we got back from that is equal to the expected result, then we print passed, else we print failed. Okay, so let's see how, and then uh, you'll remember that if in fact we're running this all by itself as my password module, then we are going to call main. So let's run this. We're going to run it. And we've got unit testing output, test case 1, password too short. It passed. So it found one and only one error. That's what we were expecting. Okay. Well, it can only find one because we've only really implemented one of the rules. Okay. Now, what's the next thing that we're going to do? Well, just implement the next one. All right. So the next thing that we said was a requirement was that it has to have an uppercase alphabetic. So let's go look at that. Okay, got one too many blank lines there. Okay, so interesting, my other code says, oh, let me undo this. Okay, my other code, I'm going to have to refactor my pre-baked code. I'm going to put you on pause and I'll do that. Okay, so I refactored the already baked one so that the the result that we're passing back is a list called error messages. Okay, so here's the second rule again. We're using a raw string for the pattern, and the pattern is it has to match the set. One of the characters has to match the set of all of the uppercase A through Z. That's a range. Okay, well, that's good. Great. And if it doesn't, then we're going to append the error message. Password must include at least one uppercase letter, and then we show A through Z. Okay, well, that looks like a good rule. Okay. And by the way, how do we do this? How do we do the test? Well, we do the test is we say, if not RE dot search A through Z. So if in fact we look at the candidate and we don't have an uppercase A through Z, then we have the error. Okay. All right, so we're going to need another test case, at least one test case, and let's go find that. Okay, so our second test case, it's going to look like this. Okay, so we're going to print out test case 2, password meets all criteria. Oh, how about that? Um, you know, when we wanted to test the first one, right? We wanted to make sure that we really need it just to test the first of the rules that we have. We really need test case 2. So what are the criteria? Well, an uppercase, a lowercase, a special character, and then 6 characters long, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that input password should pass all the rules. Okay, what's the expected result? Well, the error message's list is going to be empty. That's how we know it's a valid password. Okay, so and then we get the actual result by calling validate password on the input password. And if the actual result is equal the expected result, well, then we're going to pass, else we're going to print failed. So we're going to run this now. And, I just want to show that even before we put in the second rule, we could have used the second test case. So let's put rule 2 into a comment. Okay, so now we've only got the rule 1, but we've got 2 test cases. And let's go run this again. Okay, and test case 1, we passed. Test case 2, password meets all criteria. We passed that as well. Oh, very good. Okay, so the third test goes with rule 2. So let's uncomment rule 2, where we're looking for an uppercase. All right. And now we need to come down here. Let's just close this. We need to come down here and add another test case. So I have a test case 3, okay, and that is, well, what if we fail the test where we're looking for a lowercase, I'm sorry, an uppercase letter. That's as far as we are along. So let's look at this. So test case 3 tests if we we fail rule 2 here. We don't have an uppercase. So what do we pass to it? Well, we don't pass an uppercase. So we pass all the other thing that it needs, a lowercase, a special. It's 6 characters long. So what are we going to expect? Well, we're going to expect only to trigger password must include at least one uppercase letter A to Z. And how did we get that message? Well, we copied it out of the code where we put it into the list. That's the same code. There's no reason to type that in twice. All right. So test case 3 ought to take care of the situation where we fail having an uppercase letter. So let's run this. And what do we got? Well, we passed the test case 3 as well. Very good. Okay. Now, do we need another test case for the code we have so far? Nope, I think we're okay. Okay, we have one that passes all the rules, meets all the criteria, and we've got 2 rules, and we've got the fail of rule 1 in test case 1. We have the pass all the rules in test case 2, and we have the fail of rule 2 in test case 3. So I think we need another rule. So let's go up here and get the next rule. So length of 6 has an uppercase alphabetic. Now we need has a lowercase alphabetic. Okay, and I'm just going to copy that out of my already baked version. Okay, put it in here. Okay, and again, we're using a raw string. We're using a set. We have a set that includes the range of characters from A through Z. Okay, lowercase. And then if we should fail that, because we're looking for the not, okay, if we should fail that, then we put in the message. It's the same as the last one, except it says lowercase instead of uppercase, and it shows the lowercase instead of showing the uppercase. Okay, so we have a new rule. All right. Do we need a new test? Yeah, I think we do. Okay, because we had test 3 was for missing uppercase letter. Rule 4 should be, test 4 should be missing lowercase letter. And again, I've got that in my already baked version. I'm going to copy that out. Okay. So there we are. Need another blank line there. So let's see, the input password is, it's got an uppercase, a special, and it's got 6 characters. So the only rule that we have implemented so far that it doesn't pass is lowercase alphabetic. So the expected result is we're going to get the error message for failing the lowercase test. Then we do the call to get the actual result, and if the actual isn't equal to the expected, if the actual is equal to the expected, then we passed, else we failed. Okay, so we're expecting to pass. All right, well, let's see what we get. A test 4 passed. Very good. Okay. So, how many more how many more rules do we need? Well, we don't have the rule that checks for the special character yet. So let's add that. Okay, and I'm gonna copy that rule, copy the code that implements that rule from my already baked version. All right. Oh, it's not what I wanted. There we go. Okay, so it should go right here. Okay, and raw string again, and we're using a set. So we said we're looking for one character that is going to meet is going to be in this set. So these are all the specials that qualify. Okay, and if it doesn't, then the message is going to say password must include at least one special character. And again, I've essentially taken this set and copy pasted it into the parens. All right, so do we have a test for that? No, we don't have a test for that yet. So we need a test for missing a special character. So let's go find that. So I have a test case 5 in my already baked code that tests for that. So let's go do that. And I guess we needed another blank line. So we say test case 5, password missing special character. So let's see, we have an uppercase alpha, lowercase alpha. It's 6 characters long, but we don't have a special character. So we're expecting to get one error message, and again, it's the one that's associated with not having the special character. All right, so let's run that. And test case 5 is passed as well. Isn't that nice? Right? And I typically say this, but the kind of testing that we're doing here, where we predict the expected output and we compare whether we got it or not. And if we get the expected output, we pass. And if we don't get the expected output, we fail. This is a modern test that is very adaptable to all the unit testing frameworks. This approach that we have of expressing it in the main um, is something we're doing for our class because we don't want to have to learn any of the formal unit testing frameworks, but the the nature of the tests as we put them together are very adaptable to all of the formal unit testing frameworks. So if you can write one of these test cases, um, you can adapt it to one of the unit testing frameworks. One's called unit test, the other one's called PyTest. Those are the two most popular for Python. And just having the code here that we put in domain, it'd be very easy to adapt that to one of the formal unit testing frameworks. We just don't actually take that final step in this particular course. Okay, do we have all the rules we need? Yeah, I think we have all the rules we need. Uh, Length is at least 6 long, upper alphabetic, lower alphabetic, special character. Is there anything else we need to test? Yeah, there's one other thing we need to test, which is uh, can we get back more than one error at a time? Okay, so we don't need any more rules, but we need one more test case. So let me copy that over from my already baked version. And you'll see that what we have here is test case is 6. It's missing multiple criteria. Okay, so it's only 5 characters long. So it's going to get the error message for has to be 6 characters long. It doesn't have an uppercase alphabetic. It doesn't have a lowercase alphabetic. It doesn't have a special character. So it should get all the error messages that we have. And one of the nice things is that you can compare lists very easily in Python. So what we did is that we created a variable for each of the messages, okay? And then we said the expected result is a list that just has message 1, comma, message 2, comma, message 3, comma, message 4. And that does just the comparison that we want. So with this input password, we're expecting to get all 4 of these put into the list in that order. Okay, and so if we did everything right, test case 6 is going to pass as well. So let's go down here and run it again. And test case 6 has passed. So that is it. Okay. And things that we want to check, well, we might want to take a final look at all the code. Maybe we need to refactor something. Maybe it's just not laid out the way we'd like it to do. If there's anything that we change, even if it's a cosmetic kind of a change, then we're going to want to run the unit tests one more time. I kind of like the code the way we have it right now. So I'm just going to say that we're done. Okay, so as I recall, what you do in your exercise is you add a couple of more criteria. You add a couple of more rules that it has to pass, and so you have to add rules to this code, and then of course every time you add a rule, you have to add at least one test case. Okay. So off you go to do that, and I'll say bye until next time. Bye bye.